Hello people, and today I want to talk about who is to blame for the failed Anthony. I used to be a bad boy, now I'm a good boy. Joshua and Deontay Windmill Wilder negotiations failing. Now I'm going to start off with the $12.5 million and $15 million offer by Eddie the used car salesman Hearn, which Deontay Windmill Wilder did accept. Right, here is the article by Dan Raphael, who was told by Shirley the Alien Finkel that Deontay Windmill Wilder accepted the offer to come to the UK to fight Anthony Joshua. So now people were saying that it's Deontay Windmill Wilder's fault that the fight never happened, as he turned his back on the offer. He gave his word, but he didn't keep his word. He's a hypocrite. Let me just show you a video just to clear things up. You're going to hear Carl, the plastic nose Frotch speaking, was promoted by Eddie, the used car salesman Hearn.
No, about the Wilder situation with Joshua.
I don't know, it's a bit annoying, it's frustrating. I'd like the fight to happen, but I think it builds on it. If they leave it till next year, it builds a little bit more drugs.
Yeah.
More
But whose fault is it that the fight isn't happening now?
Eddie Hearn's. It's always Eddie Hearn's fault.
You reckon?
Yeah, definitely.
No, seriously.
No, seriously, it's Eddie's fault.
Okay.
Like 100%.
Why do you think that?
Because he's a very good promoter.
A lot of what you say is correct, so fuck you.
And to anybody who thinks that I edited videos or from different interviews or about Carl the plastic nose Frotch talking about a different fight, as you can see, you will find this interview on I Fucking Laugh TV. So feel free to type in I blame Eddie Hearn for Joshua Wilder not happening, and you will see this video and you can watch this video in full. So now, we all know what occurred next, the $120 million DAZN deal. But let me just ask you a question now. Say if you were a world boxing champion, you held one of the 4 prestigious belts in one division, and let's say another company who promoted the other boxer who held 3 of the 4 prestigious belts offered you a 3-fight deal, which 1 mandatory and then twice you need to fight their champion who holds 3 belts. They never told you how much their champion will make in the fights against you, but they told you that you will make $20 million for your mandatory and then 2 fights with their champion, and you will make $50 million each in those 2 fights against their champion. Now it's only a 3-fight deal, and you don't know how much their champion is going to make for the fights against you. Let me repeat, it's a 3-fight deal. It's a 3-fight deal. 1, 2, 3, a 3-fight deal. So, whose side do you think the referees, the judges, will be on in a fight against Deontay Windmill Wilder? Now, let's not forget these nuts offered Saul Canelo Alvarez an 11-fight deal, making him $33 million per fight, and yet they only offered Deontay Windmill Wilder a 3-fight deal. So in essence, they wanted to buy Deontay Windmill Wilder's belt off him and then kick him to the curb after they had done. Now, I don't know about you, but if that was me, I would not agree to that deal. Absolutely no chance. I mean, if I was these nuts, I would have offered Deontay Windmill Wilder a 10-fight deal, and he earns $25 million per fight as long as he holds the WBC, WBO, WBA and IBF belts. And if he decides to unify, he will make $50 million in a unification fight. And if he doesn't hold any of the 4 prestigious belts, not the secondary belts like the silver or the regular titles, but the actual world belts, then he will only make $7 to $10 million per fight. Now, that kind of a deal Deontay Windmill Wilder would have accepted. Now, just look at the genius of Al the Only With Me Cause I'm Black Heyman and Shirley Finkel. 2 years ago, Deontay Windmill Wilder was being offered $5 million to fight Dylan Alfightinargos White. 1 year ago, he was being offered $12.5 million and then $15 million to fight Anthony. I used to be a bad boy, now I'm a good boy, Joshua. And a few months ago, he was offered $100 million, $50 million per fight to fight Joshua. They have probably told Deontay Windmill Wilder that this fight can only get bigger, especially once you become a pay-per-view star in the States. And which it will, if Deontay Windmill Wilder becomes a pay-per-view star in the States, and I actually hope that they have a plan to promote him correctly.
The big fights will happen, I promise you that. We'll come patient, come time, and I just want you guys to have patience and give us a little time to make this thing happen. The way we all benefit from it, not only just you fans, because we risk our lives in here. So we want to make sure we get the best and the most money that's possible.
Now that interview was after Deontay Windmill Wilder KO Dominic I got slapped up Brazil. He said the most money possible from the fight, which is what I'm saying, that both Eddie, the used car salesman Hearn, and Deontay Windmill Wilder's camp know that the only way this fight can go is up. It doesn't matter if both fighters take a loss, the unification fight will only increase as both fighters' resumes and both fighters' popularities increase in America. Now it's time to dig into the $50 million offer made by Deontay Windmill Wilder to Anthony Joshua. Now, there was no contract sent. There was no contract sent. There was no contract sent. Now, let me educate you on New York law. In the state of New York, if you verbally agree something, it can be held against you in the court of law. Now, let me ask you a question. If you were a promoter and your fighter received a $50 million offer without proof of funds and without a contract, would you allow him to accept that offer? If you answered yes, well, I have a bridge here that I want to sell to you today. And Anthony, it's me bad boy now, I'm good boy Joshua, could not even say, yeah, I accept the $50 million. Because if he did, then it could be held against him in the court of law. What he said was, okay, send the contract, and we'll look through the contract. The reply was, no, first accept the $50 million, and then we'll send you the contract. So, of course, that offer was unacceptable. One of the clauses in the contract might have been that Anthony Joshua fights with one hand tied behind his back. Another clause might have been that Deontay Windmill Wilder is not subject to VADA testing, while Anthony Joshua is. Another clause might have been that Deontay Windmill Wilder gets to smack Anthony Joshua over the head with a baseball bat before the fight starts. You get where I'm going with here, don't you? And of course, news came out later that Frank I got shot, Fisheye Warren was going to put up some of the $50 million so that Joshua would have to fight on BT Sports. And as we know, Anthony I to be a bad boy now, I'm a good boy Joshua, has a legal contract with Sky, which means that he has to show all his fights on Sky unless he loses a purse bid. And of course, as we know, a unification is a voluntary and thus does not mandate a purse bid happening. So Joshua would have been in breach of his contract and his ass would have been sued by Sky Sports. So, to the deluded Deontay Windmill Wilder fans, that $50 million was bogus, and if Joshua accepted it, his ass would have got sued by Sky Sports. So, in conclusion, who is to blame? Nobody and everybody. Both camps understand that the fight will only grow in monetary value. And so, to maximize the revenue generated by this fight, both camps have allowed this fight to marinate, while at the same time continuing this facade of blaming each other for the fight not being made. While there is a clear plan in action, which is to make Deontay Windmill Wilder a pay-per-view star in the States, and also for Anthony Joshua to help crack the United States market. And only then will the unification fight actually happen. If and when it happens, in my opinion, it will be a jointly promoted event by Matchroom USA and the PBC It will also be a jointly televised event available on Slow Time pay-per-view and DAZN's pay-per-view. And yes, it will be on DAZN's pay-per-view, as they will allow it for this unification fight, in my opinion. Please remember to like, comment, share and subscribe. Peace out.